Jai Hind to all. Now, may I request Dr. Ritesh Singhal? Dr. Ritesh, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Uh,
Uh,
sir, kindly
so
proceed
thank
for
you
the.
for the Now we are going to start, sir. So good evening and Jai Hind to everyone present here. On behalf of AKGIM and Dr. Ritesh Singh will extend warm welcome to the second day of this FDP program on machine learning using Python for beginners. Yesterday we learned the basics of machine learning. Pratik sir explained the meaning of the term supervised, unsupervised learning. We discussed detail of various stages of data analytics, including descriptive, diagnostics, predictive, and prescriptive analytics in a very lucid manner. We shared the basics of Python programming, including including Python libraries, numpties, pandas, streamlit, and anaconda, which made the session very interactive. Today we are starting the most demanding session. The participants are eagerly waiting for this with the topic working with Python. Mr. Pratik Vashisht will continue the session. Now, continuing with the same zeal, today we have some hands-on experience with Python programming, and I think participants are ready with their fully charged laptops and break-free internet connection. So, Pratik sir, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, sir, and very warm welcome to all the participants. Welcome back to the session in day two. So today, as we discussed yesterday as well, we are going to uh, do the hands-on. We'll start from the very scratch, very basics of Python programming, and for that, I requested everybody to install. Uh, Okay, so I asked everybody to install Python along with Anaconda. So I hope that is already installed and up and running in your system. If anybody is facing any issue, please let me know. Okay, so Pradeep Verma ji has done already. Uh, reply back in the chat as a poll, right? Whether you have installed or not. Just write yes or no. Is Anaconda or Jupyter Notebook ready in your system or not? Because I'll prefer to go with Jupyter Notebooks.
Sorry, we have installed from the link which you have shared
Okay.
yesterday. No?
Sir, yes, that will work. So
Okay.
if you have installed, and I hope you know how to start Jupyter Notebook. If not, then I can share my screen and let you know how to start that. There are a couple of direct ways to do that. Kishore, if you're using Spider, that is okay. I don't mind. You can go ahead and use a Spider also. I'll show you the alternate way as well. Uh, Fine. I'll share my screen.
Pratik, sir,
Yes, sir.
if may I request you to just give an overview how to download it, because maybe some of them agitating here not to respond like we have not
Okay.
responded.
You want me to explain?
Just for a sec, for a 1 or 2 minute time, just how to download it.
Okay, fine. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone, and I can just simply type in Google Anaconda download, and the very first link that I get is anaconda.com. This is the website, the Anaconda distribution. When I click on this link, this page is visible to you, right? And on the right hand side, we have the latest version to install, download and install. So I can download for Windows, I can download for Mac, I can download for Linux as well, right? So automatically it will detect, like for me it is Windows, so it is detecting Windows. If you work from Linux, it will automatically detect that. So you can click on download this, and this supports Python 3.9 version for a 64-bit operating system. Now, if you wish to look for other types like 32-bit Windows or 32-bit Linux and something else, so below you find that there's an additional installer I can find by clicking on the icon for Windows or Mac or Linux. So, for example, if I wish to get the 32-bit from Windows, I can click on Windows icon. It will scroll down automatically, and below, towards the end of this page, I'll find both 64-bit and 32-bit installers. For Mac as well, I'll have all the 64-bit installers available. And for Linux, I have the 64-bit installers available for different types of distributions. Right. So according to your operating system, you can download and install Anaconda. Once it is done, once this Anaconda is installed, simply, and I would also recommend during the installation, when it asks to add the Anaconda path, right, to the system path, then please do check and allow it so that the path is automatically added. Otherwise, you have to do it manually. And in your Windows, when it is installed, you simply have to search for Anaconda. When you search for Anaconda, you'll get this option of Anaconda Navigator. So when you open Navigator, it will take a few seconds to come up. So once the navigator starts, it looks something like this, right? And you have this
I've
option.
reached up to this place, sir. Oh.
Okay, so you can see at this point in the Anaconda Navigator, you'll see Jupyter Lab is there, and when you scroll a little, you'll find Jupyter Notebooks directly are also available. We have the PowerShell prompt. We have PyQt, right? R Studio for R programming. Anybody can use it later. Spider is also there, right? So you can either use Spider, right? Install it and use it, or Jupyter Notebooks are always available. So you can simply click on Launch Jupyter Notebook, or alternatively, you can also launch Jupyter Lab. Like, both are same. So Jupyter Notebook is a little lighter version, so you can go for Jupyter Notebooks. Jupyter Lab has more functionality that is basically not required right now. So you can simply launch Jupyter Notebook. In my case, it is already running, so I'll just close this from here. Just a second. Fine. And when I click on launch, so this navigator will start Jupyter Notebook environment in my web browser. Now, if you see something like this, that means Jupyter Notebook is running in your system.
Yes, sir. We can see. I can see it
Right.
on my system.
So if this is visible, that is good. So for example, I wish to create new files on desktop, right? So I'll click on desktop, and here I can either also create a new folder on desktop, right? Or I can simply directly create a file. So whenever I wish to create a new Jupyter Notebook file, on the right hand side, top right, I can find this. There are two buttons, upload and new. So when I click on new, there's an option Python 3, text file, folder, terminal. So I can create a new folder on desktop. I can select that folder and keep my files there, right? Alternatively, if I directly want to keep my files on desktop itself, I can simply click on Python 3. So this is going to open Python 3 notebook. What does it mean? On the top right, again, you can see Python 3 is written. That is the kernel which is running in my Jupyter notebook. That means Python 3 codes will get compiled and interpreted when I write and run in this Jupyter notebook. If I change the kernel, right? If I have multiple kernels installed on my system, I can change the kernel. I can, even for Python itself, I can have multiple kernels available. There's something called as a Intel distribution of Python, which is a separate Python kernel apart from the normal distribution of Python, and that is also, we call it as a fast Python, right? So if you have an additional kernel install, you can select that as well. So in a simple case, I'll go with Python 3 kernel only, and when it is there, then you can go ahead and start writing your code here, right? So if you're done till here, that is all good. If anybody is facing issue, then let me know. I'll tell you another alternative way.
Participant, if you are facing any problem, then please ask. Otherwise, I'll request sir to continue. Okay, sir.
Okay.
श्रीनिवास जी,
Srinivas is facing some issue. Can you
Tanmay,
specify what it is?
Tanmay is okay.
No, no, it is not downloading, sir. Actually,
Okay.
I could only register my account there, but not not able to install it.
Okay. So if you're facing problem in installation itself, I'll tell you another simple way to do it. You don't even have to install, right? So I'll just close my Jupyter notebook. I don't want to use it right now. Simply, you can open a new tab in your web browser and simply type Jupyter Space Notebook. Search this in Google. When you search in Google Jupyter, you'll get an option jupyter.org website. So you can follow along. Anybody who is facing issue in downloading and installing, you can just visit this URL. I'll just copy paste it in the chat as well. So if you follow this URL, you lend it to this page. This is the Jupyter official page, jupyter.org. And when I scroll a bit, I'll find this Jupyter Lab is available. I can try in the browser, I can install Jupyter Lab directly on my system. So that is one option, right? Jupyter Notebook is another one. So I can classic notebooks, I can try it in browser or I can install on the local system. So you can download and install from this link as well, this directly from jupyter.org. But this will only install Jupyter, right? Now, the supporting libraries that comes with Anaconda will not be automatically available. So for today's session, you can simply click on try in browser for either of Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook, right? So if you click on Jupyter Notebook, try in browser, you'll get these options. You have Jupyter, you have Jupyter Notebook, right? And voila. So if I select Jupyter Lab, for example, or Jupyter Notebook, any of these, so I can just click and this will get open in my web browser itself. So this is the Jupyter Lab environment. And if I go back, I don't want the Jupyter Lab. I can simply go ahead and okay, it's not. If I go for Jupyter Notebook only, I can click on the center button, the center link, that is Jupyter Notebook, and this will open Jupyter Notebook in my web browser, right? So this is some introductory notebook which is there. You can see on my screen. I can click on File menu on top, select New Notebook, File menu, New Notebook. So in a new tab, I'll get a blank Jupyter notebook. It will ask me for a confirmation of kernel. So I'll select the Python kernel and this will start running the Jupyter notebook in my web browser. So this is another way. Without installation in the browser directly you can run. So there is a server, cloud-based server somewhere which is running and providing you the facility to use the Jupyter Lab directly in your web browser without installation. I hope this will solve the issue.
Sir, kindly repeat the kernel that you said.
Okay, in this web browser based, I'll just go back. Right, so when you open Jupyter Notebook, the browser based without installation, just click on File, New, and Notebook. When a new notebook will open, it will ask for the kernel, right? So the default is Python. That is what is required. There are other kernels as well. SQLite is there, right? And I don't see any other kernel. So the default one, the Python, is what is required. That is what we need. So I can simply click on select and that
Okay.
kernel get activated.
Okay, sir. Done.
Fine. So I guess this will solve your problem if it is not installed on your system. Fine. So in my case, I'll just directly go. Anybody who has Anaconda already installed, you can also search for directly for Jupyter Notebook in your laptop, and it will open up in your browser. I'll click on desktop. I'll create a new Python 3 here. Fine. So I have a new file on top. If you see something like that, the name beside Jupyter, it is written as untitled one. So you can click on this and rename your Jupyter notebook. So I'll say Python basics. Right. I can rename my notebook. Fine. And on top, if I click inside a cell, this is a cell, right? This is a notebook cell. I can type in here. I can type anything, right? I can type some code, anything here. Now, if I click inside the cell and on top in the drop down, there is something written as code. If I select, this is code, markdown, raw, and headings. These are the options I have. So code, if it is selected as code, that means I can write the Python code inside the cell and that will get executed. If I select as markdown, so I can write some text, some comments, right? So hash is a symbol that will help me like an heading. It works like an HTML headings, right? So if I say hash or double hash or triple hash, so I can write anything there. So for example, I use hash and I write Python basics. So this becomes like an heading, and below that I can use the any of the cell like a normal cell where I can write the code. So by default it is selected as code. Fine. So I guess everybody's
Yes, sir.
ready with
Sir,
this.
please repeat that.
And
How we can select here
Yes, sir.
code? In the code, we are having a markdown, raw, NB convert, heading.
yes. So you have to select markdown if you want to write something like an heading or some text, some simple text, not a coding text.
Okay.
Right. So you can select that
Okay.
particular cell as a markdown. Otherwise, by default, it will
Oh,
remain as code.
markdown is nothing but spelling, sir.
So markdown will allow you to write some heading, some text, some descriptions about your code. Even images you can
If you
insert.
want to write opening the cell.
Sorry.
If you want to open the cell, we have to open what heading or
Okay. Open means I'm not getting what do you mean by open. Okay. So if you have to go back to this cell, you have to just double click on this, right? And if you want to execute, there is a run button. If you click on run, this gets executed. So if it is markdown, it's a simple text. If it is a code, then when you run, the Python code gets executed. If you want to add more cells, there is a plus button below the file menu. There is a plus button. You click on plus, the more number of cells gets added to your code file. I hope that answers your question, sir.
So, sir,
Fine.
once the code is written, you have put a enter, or did you put a cursor? How you know?
So,
Next
sir,
step?
I haven't done anything. I'll let you know
Okay.
when we write the code. I'll let you know how to execute that. There are a few options. So, to begin with, I'll write a very simple code, right? And something that can be directly executed on Python interpreter. So, if I say 2 plus 3, right, and I must get some response. If I press enter, so I will enter to do the next line. The cursor will go move to the next line, and I can write something else here, right? So I don't want to write anything else. So I just want to execute this. In that case, if you see there is an arrow. When I place the mouse pointer, it says run this cell. I can click on this arrow itself. So the answer comes as 5. Second option is I can click inside the cell. I have written any code. So for example, this time I write 7 plus 10. On top menu bar, I can see there's a button called as run. So if I click on run, then also the cell gets executed. The third option is if I have any code written inside the cell, I can simply press Control Enter or Shift Enter. Both will work. So if I press shift enter, then also it gets executed. If I press control enter, then also the cell gets executed. Fine. The difference is when I press control enter, the cell will get execute. That's the only operation. When I press shift plus enter, cell gets executed and a new cell is added below. If there is no more cells, a new cell will get added automatically. I hope that is okay.
Yes, sir. It's okay.
Fine. So shall we start with the basics of Python? How to write program in Python, right? So I'll start with few very basic things. What is the first thing that we do with every programming? Any ideas? Any guesses? Those who have the programming experience, what is the first program that we write with any programming language?
See,
Hello world.
Hello world. Yes, that's the convention in computer science. So whatever programming language we learn, the first program what we write is like hello world, right? So we have to print hello world. So in Python, it's very simple. If you want to print hello world or any text or any values back, right, to the console, there is a very simple function called as print. I can simply write print. I hope this is clearly visible. Again, otherwise I'll just try to zoom in a little bit.
Also, it's fine, sir. It's fine, sir.
Fine. So I'll simply write print, and inside print I can write some text. For example, I can write a character and execute it. That gets printed. I can write some line of text. So for example, hello world is what traditionally we write. So that gets printed back on the console, right? Or I can write any values, any number. So for example, I say 123. So 123 gets printed onto the screen. Fine. So the difference you see is whenever you write numbers, you can write directly. I can write 123, I can write 123.89. Right. So 123 is simply a whole number and integer. 123.89 is a floating point number. But if in case I have to write a text, then I need to enclose the text within single quotes. That is one option. Or I can enclose the text in double quotes. Or I can enclose the text in triple quotes. 3 times single quotes. That is one option. Or alternatively, what we can do, instead of 3 times single quote, I can write 3 times double quotes as well. Both will work. Right. So single quotes, double quotes, or 3 times quotes. That means triple quotes, triple single quotes or triple double quotes. Fine. So that is how we write the string values or the text values in Python within the quotes. Why do we have triple quotes? I'll tell you, there is a special meaning to that. I'll show you that with an example. In a simple terms, triple quotes are usually used for multiple lines of text. Fine. What is the next thing that we do? We work with variables. Right. Variable is something that can hold your value. If I have value, for example, I have value 30. Where should I go ahead and save this value in the memory? I need a memory space to record this value, save this value, so that I can utilize it again and again whenever required. I can refer to this value. So it could be any value. It could be numbers. It could be text as well. It could be any other type of value. But I need a means to save it. To save it in a memory, a computer system, right, definitely it has some internal process that will save it in the memory, but there has to be a name for the memory. Wherever I go ahead and save my data, the memory location should have some logical name, the name which is like very simple, intuitive for any programmers or any user to use and understand it, right? So I can name those memory locations, I can give them a name, and those are called as the variables. So for example, I'll say x. So I'll say x equal to 30. So a variable x is created, and whenever I want, I can print the value of x. Right. So wherever I am going to use the variable name x, that means it holds a number value 30. Similarly, I can have any number of variables. So I can have another variable. So for example, I say x equal to 30 and y equal to 20. So I can have multiple variables and multiple values. Sorry. So I have to execute this. Multiple values can be printed using the print operation. A comma separated functionality will work. If I write x comma y, 30 and 20 both values are printed on my screen. I hope that is okay so far.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Sir, how we are getting a new cell after writing the first one?
Okay. So if you like, for example, this is the last cell which is
And
selected right now. Fine. So if I want to add more cells, on the top there is a plus button. That is to insert a new cell. Fine.
Okay.
Otherwise, if I write something, for example, I don't have this cell also. This is the last cell where I've written print x comma y, right? So when I run this using shift enter, this cell gets executed and a new cell is added below. It is a combination of operations, execute and add a new cell, right? If I don't press shift enter, if I simply say run, then also it will work. Now, if I say control enter, so this gets executed, but a new cell is not added, right? So if you want to keep adding new cells every time, if you want to run that way, use shift plus enter or use the run button on top. Fine. So I'll add few more elements to this print function, right? So we have printed x and y values. Now you can see there's a blank space between 30 and 20. I don't want that, right? So print function in Python 3, print is a function. In Python 2, it was a statement, right? So it has some greater functionalities available. So with x comma y value, I can use a parameter, sorry, not the parameter, an attribute called as SEP, that is the separator. And if by default it is a blank space, but I don't want the default behavior from this functionality. If I say that between the values there should be comma, so I'll write within single quotes, I'll write comma. I'll add this character comma, which would then be added when the values are printed. So the values would be 30 comma 20. Instead of 30 space 20, it would be 30 comma 20. Or for any number of values, for example, I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, all of the values would be comma separated when we print them. And if I don't define this SAP element, so it will keep using the default, that is the blank space between the numbers. Similarly, I also have END. That is at the end if I wish to print something. So for example, at the end I wish to print hash symbol. It will print like that. All the values, and at the end there is a character hash which is printed. Fine. I hope that is okay so far. So we have seen how we create variables and we assign values to the variables directly. So unlike anybody who's familiar with Java, C or C++, you might have seen that in Java, C or C++, we have to create variables, like we write the data type also, int of x, string of x, right? So in Python, we don't have to define that way. Now, I said that these values are getting stored in memory somewhere, right? Then let's prove that it is stored somewhere in the memory. So I can check the memory location using ID functionality. So if I say ID of x, that will print the memory location. That is going to print the memory location for variable x. This is the location where the value of x, that means 30, as an integer value, is saved. Similarly, I can check for y as well. So it's 6. If you look at the last 5 digits, 24656, where x value is saved, and 24336, that is where the y value is saved. Two different memory locations. Now, can you tell me what is the value of y? Value of y is 20, right?
Yeah.
Now, I can update this value. If I say y is equal to y plus 10, what would be the new value of y now?
30.
It will become 30, right? And value of x is also 30. Now, let's go ahead and check what is ID of x. Also, go ahead and check what is ID of y. That means what is the memory location for x and y. Is there any difference?
No.
These both memory locations are same. Reason being, in Python, the value, if the values for two different variable is exactly same, they will keep pointing to the same memory location. It will not duplicate values in the memory. The memory manager is designed in such a way it will save memory. If you have duplicate values, if you have 10, 100 duplicate values, it will point, it will keep only one copy of the value. All the variables will keep pointing to the same memory location, so that only one memory space is occupied.
Sir, how many values we can assign to the single digit location?
So at a single location, there would be only one value, but any number of variables can point to that single location.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Pratik sir,
Yes, sir.
Tanmay Bhardwaj has asked a question in the
Okay.
chat box.
Can we initialize and print value of variable in the same cell? Yes, we can do that. In the same cell, we can do that. I'll just do it. Z equal to 100, and I'll write Z directly in the same cell. Or if you want to use the print functionality, I can use print. Within the same cell, I can do that. No worries. I can write 10 lines, 100 lines of code in the same cell. Not an issue. I'm just writing just 1 or 2 lines of code in a cell so that I can talk about one thing at a time. Otherwise, we can go ahead and write n number of lines in the single cell. That is all allowed. All okay. Fine. So, okay. So we now know what is a print functionality. We now know what is a variable. How do we store values in the variable? Now, I'll tell you some of the basic mathematical operations that we can perform. Right. So I have a value. For example, I have x equal to 15, and I have y equal to, for example, 13. Right. So I can perform some operations. I'll simply write, copy this. I can write x plus y. I can write x minus y. I can write x divide by y. Division can be performed. X into y, multiplication of the numbers can be done. And x modulus 2. For example, I write x modulus 2. That means I am looking to find the remainder when I am dividing the number by 2. Right? So if I just go and execute this, it will display the values. X plus y is 28, x minus y is 2, x divided by y is 1.153, so on. I guess it will take 17 decimal values, and x multiply by y, that comes out to be 195, and x modulus 2, that means if I divide x value, that is 15 divided by 2, what would be the remainder? So the remainder would be 1 in that case.
One question I have: earlier you have given, for example, x value 30 and 20. Now
Yes.
you have given, so it will I mean, change the value of x.
It will overwrite.
Overwrite.
Yes. So at the same memory location.
Hello,
So
Pratik sir.
maybe, yeah. Yes, sir.
Sir, is the variable name is case sensitive here?
It is case sensitive. It is case sensitive.
Okay.
So small x is different. So if I write small x and if I write capital X, both are different. Both are two different variables, might have different values. Right.
Okay, sir.
I'll tell you another example. If I write, for example, I write new equal to 10, and I write capital N new equal to 20, and I write NEW all caps equal to 30, and if I write NEW capital equal to 40, this is all different. If I write underscore new equal to 50, this is another variable. These are all different variables. Right, so variable names are all case sensitive here.
One of the function you told, this last one, you said about like some modular something and
The x modulus 2.
yeah. So what exactly this function is? Because I have heard for first time.
Okay, fine. So this is an operator basically. Percent symbol is used for no, as an operator. This is a modulus operator. I'll write a comment as well. So with hash symbol, I can write comments in Python. Right. So modulus operation means whatever be the value of x, if I divide that value with 2, so what would be the remainder? So for example, I'll write 18 modulus 2. Remainder would be 0 because 18 can be divided by 2. But if I write 18 modulus 5, so 5 into 3 is 15, but 3 will be the remainder after division. So remainder after division is given by the modulus operator. I hope.
Yeah. I've got it.
Okay, fine. So I was talking about like floating point numbers are there, right? We can have floating point numbers. For example, if I divide, okay, I'll just write the numbers directly. So if I divide 18 by 5, what would be the answer? Answer would be 3.6, right? It would be floating point number. Or I'll go ahead and divide 19 by 5, it would be 3.8. Or I'll write 19 by 3, that would be 6.33. Now, I don't want the floating point number as a response. I just want to divide the number directly. I want an integer response. So I can write double slash. That is another operator in Python that is called as, that is used for integer division. Integer division. So in this case, it would not be 6.33, it would be 6 only. Only the integer part after division would be returned as a response. Similarly, in Python, we also have an exponential operator that is double asterisk. So if I write 8 double asterisk 3, that is 8 raised to power 3. That is same as multiplying 8 3 times. These both are same. So I can say I can have x equal to 19 double asterisk 15. Can you guess what would be the value? 19 raised to power
One.
15. 1. No, it would be 19 raised to power 15.
Okay. Sorry, sir.
This is the value. A large value.
19 to 15 times.
Yes, 19 is multiplied 15
19
times.
power 15. Right.
19 power 15. Yes.
Okay.
And this is a very large number, but it's still not very large enough. So instead of 19, if I write 119 raised to power 15, or if I write 1199 raised to power 15, or if I write 1199 raised to power 155, this is big the number is. You can't even verify, right? So this is how big the number will come. This is beauty and power of Python. The variable x can hold a integer value which is this much big. 1199 raised to power 155. That means 1199 is multiplied by itself 155 times. In Python, integers have almost an unlimited memory size, or practically it is the same as the memory that is available in your system. Right? So big numbers, big integer numbers can also be stored in the variables in Python.
In case of other programming language, for example, I know C++, C, sir.
Yes, there
So
is a limitation.
there is a limitation.
In Java, in C, C++, there is a limitation. In Java, we have big integers that can hold a bigger value. But if we look at the simple int in C and C++, in Java as well, so it has a limitation. In Python, it can store any big number. It depends on your RAM size. If your RAM is 8 GB, accordingly it can be stored. If it is 32 GB, accordingly a bigger number can be stored. Fine, and Python can perform such a big calculations as well. Fine. So this is all about variables, printing the values. But how can I take input from the user? If I want to take something as an input from the user, I can accept an input. So I'll say y equal to input, and this will allow me to take value from the user. So I can simply run this code, and it will provide with a text box where I can input some value. So I say 56, that 56 gets stored into y. So if I print y, so 56 is being displayed here. Now this 56, can you see there is some difference? Any number that is displayed here, like 512 or 6, and this 56, it is displayed within single quotes. The value in y is stored as 56, but it is in within quotes. And I told you within quotes we write string values, the text, right? Not the numbers. So whether it is a number or not, how do I know that? So there is a function called as type. I can check the data value type. So if I write type of y, so it says str. Str means it is a string data. And if I check for type of x, x is an integer. Previously, the value of x that we calculated, that is an integer. But the value stored in y is str, because the input function will always return a string value. Even if you provide numbers as an input, it will always return a string value and save in the variable. But I don't want string because I have entered numbers. In that case, I can convert my variable to an integer type. So if I say y equal to int of y, that means convert y into integer type, right? And then I go ahead, then now y is also integer type. I can typecast it into an integer type. Fine. So I can convert string to an integer if there is a number inside the string. It is only number, not the alphanumeric, not the alphabets. If it is only numbers, I can convert using int typecasting. And I can write directly here as well, int typecasting of input. That works in the same way. So as soon as the value is entered, it is converted to integer. Also, I can write a message here. So I'll say, I can prompt the user, enter number. So whenever I run this, a message enter number will appear, and then I can enter some number. Fine. So this is a way to take the input from the users. I hope things are clear till here. If you have any query, please let me know.
Oh, sir,
So-
thanks.
Okay. Anybody else so far? If you have any question, I'll just wait for a few seconds.
So vice versa also possible. So string to integer, integer to string, both.
Yes, so string to integer is possible, but integer to string, yes, that is also possible in case you want to convert number into an string type, right? So for example, I'll say Z is 450, right? And the type of value which is stored in Z, it is definitely an integer type. But I can go ahead and say Z equal to str of Z. That means I'll convert it to a string type. Now the value inside Z will be str type, and if I print, it will be printed in the single quotes. So in some cases, you might need to convert numbers into a string. If you wish to store it somewhere as a string or use it like that, so you can do that.
Okay.
Right. But similarly, if, for example, in the Z, if I don't have, for example, I have the string, right, and I have string like I'll say 567H, right? That is a string value. Now, if I wish to convert this string into an integer, will that be possible? No, it will throw an error. That's the value error, because something which I am looking to convert into integer type also contains an alphabet H, which is not a number. If the entire thing within the quotes is number, that can be converted to integer, otherwise not. Fine. Okay, so I guess we can move ahead and look for some constructs. I'll look for conditional statements here. What is a conditional statement? I quickly tell you with a very simple example. So now, for example, I have x equal to 10, y equal to 20. There is some value in x and y, but I don't know which one is smaller, which one is greater. I can go ahead and compare these values, right? I have the comparative operators. So I can say x less than y, or x more than y, or x equal to y. I can check whether any number is less or more or same or has the same value using the operators less than, greater than, and equal to, right? But how do I check this and utilize this comparison for any operations, right? For example, on any particular condition, right, for a smaller value of, if x is smaller, I want to perform some operation, or if the y is the smaller number, I want to perform some different operation. So how do I do that? How I conditionally control the program flow, right? So I have a construct called as if else. I can simply write the syntax. Please look at the syntax, and this is important. I'll simply write if is a keyword, X is less than Y. This is a condition. And then I'll write a colon symbol. And after that, I'll press enter. Now, as I press enter, you can see the cursor prompt is not exactly on the extreme left side. It is a little bit with indentation. The indentation is the key in Python. Python does not have brackets, opening and closing curly brackets or any form of brackets to define the block of code. Right? It has the indentation mechanism. If the indentation is correct, then the block can be identified. So I can write, for example, if X is less than Y, I will say X is smaller. For example, I want to just print the message. No other operation is required. And then I print something else. Now this is I'm printing. The print statement is on the extreme left hand side. And I'm just printing a message here. And before if block as well, I'll print something. Fine. So it will print like this. Before if block, the print statement is executed. Then we have if condition with a colon. This if keyword, condition check, and a colon. This is called as header of the if. This is called as header. And this is the body of the control statement. This comes with an indentation. There is a gap. There's an indentation gap from the left hand side. That indentation is important. That tells that this statement belongs to the if block. And any statement which is without indentation, that means if block has already ended, and this statement is a normal statement outside the if block. This is how it is structured. I'll just put extra gap. Fine. I can have n number of lines within the if block. So I can say when I execute this, if the condition is true, if x is actually less than y, only then the block inside the if gets executed. Otherwise, it will not execute. If I say x instead of less than, if I say x is more than y, now before if and after if is executed, but the block inside the if not is not executed because the condition is false this time. So it will not execute. These blocks will only execute if the condition in the if block, if header, is true. Now there is another statement called as else, which can be used with if. If we have an if block, then we can use else. Else is not mandatory, but I can utilize else if I require. I'll write keyword else, a colon symbol, and below that as well, an indentation block will come. And I can say sorry, I can write in different text. So I can say y is greater. Right. So in this condition, if condition is false, that means x is not greater than y. These blocks will not get executed, but there is an else statement also. So if the condition of if is false, then that control will directly jump to else, and it will execute any statement which is inside the else block. So the print of y is greater than x, that is printed as an output. I hope this logic is clear. Please let me know if anyone has any question on this.
Yes, sir, clear.
And don't worry about the code. I'll share this Jupyter notebook with all of you. Fine. So this is the case where we have if and else. Because the time is very less, so I'll just go with one single example of the basics. So this is if and else block. I'll go with the second logic here, that is the loop control. Loop control is a situation if I wish to execute some statements, some block of code again and again based on a condition, right? So I'll just show you. One of the loop which is very common is the while loop. I'll show you one example for a while loop. Now, for example, I have an iterator. Loop iterator is simply a variable, like whose value keeps changing during the execution of a loop. And loop is cyclic, right? A cyclic execution of some code. So, for example, I have an iterator which is I, and I say I is equal to, for example, the value initially is 0. And I write a while statement. While is a keyword. I have to give a condition for while. So I'll say while I is less than 10. Until and unless the value of I is less than 10, I am going to execute some operations. I am going to perform some actions, right? So I'll put a colon to tell the compiler that this is the end of the header. This is the, again, the header of while loop. And on the next line, again, I will start with indentation. And for example, I want to print the value of I. So I'll say value of I is equal to, and I write comma I. Fine. And this is only what I wish to print. And towards the end, I'll write print end of loop, right? A simple statement that is
So what
outside.
you have written, value of I equal to, then
Blank space,
uh-huh.
quotes close,
Okay.
comma, and
Comma
I.
I. Okay. Okay.
So a blank space will come after equal to, and then the value would be printed.
Okay.
That is just so that the value, an appropriate output comes. I can remove the blank space.
Okay.
Not required, right? So when I run this, it will print the value as 0 always, and it will keep running, right? Please don't execute this on your system, because this will go into an unending loop. I have intentionally executed this. I know the way how to stop it, right? If you in case have executed already, now you'll see the asterisk symbol on this cell, right? This code keeps running all the time, right? Now to stop that, I have to go to kernel, and I have to just interrupt the kernel, right? Because it will keep executing the value of I equal to 0, value of I equal to 0 n number of times, right? So I have to manually interrupt it. Okay, so the reason why it is executing continuously for n number of times, it is not coming as a perfect value. The condition is checked every time. The value of I is 0, but I have not updated the value of I anywhere in the loop. Inside the loop, I must update the value of I. So if I say I is equal to I plus 1, so every time when this loop is executed, the value of I is printed out, and value of I also gets updated with one value, right? Plus 1. So initially it is 0, then it will become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Until the value is less than 10, the loop will get executed. That means both the statement will keep executing again and again in a cyclic manner. Whenever the value becomes equal to 10 or more than 10, then the execution will stop, because this condition will become false. The execution of the loop will stop, and the statement after the loop gets executed.
So, sir, this indentation is like you have to have like certain gaps or like
Fault it will take, I think, sir, na?
So with the Jupyter notebooks, after colon, when you press enter in Jupyter notebooks, in some of the interactive in environments, it will take automatically. But if you're writing in an environment where it is does not accept that automatically, what you can do is you can simply press tab, a single tab for one indentation. If you have further nesting, you can press another tab.
So what do we mean by further nesting?
I'll show you an example for that. You might have a condition within a block. You might have another sub block coming inside the block. I'll just uh, show you an example, that very next example with the further nesting, right? So with this example, if I add this I equal to I plus 1, the value of I gets updated, and this time the loop will run only for values I equal to 0 to 9. And at the value 10, when the condition becomes false, loop will end. It will stop, and the statement after the loop will get executed. Fine. So there are three things: initialization of iterator, condition check on the iterator, and updation of iterator value. Now we have another loop which is called as for loop, and for loop has combination of this. So in Python, I can write a for loop in such a way. I can say for I in range. Range is a predefined functionality in Python. And if I say range 10, that means the value of I will start from 0 and go up to 9. I'll say I equal to 0 to n minus 1. What is n? N is the value inside the range function. If I simply write print of print I, so it will print values 0 to 9. So this is a comparatively a simple form of a loop, which does not require a separate initialization, a separate increment, decrement is not required. Everything is written in a single line statement. This is the header of for loop and the block of for loop with indentation. Fine. There is another version of for loop. Actually, that is another type of range functionality. So I can start with a specific value. For example, I say start with 20 and go up to 49. So I'll write 50, 20 comma 50. And I can write it will start the value of I from 20 and go up to 49. That is the case where I would start with n and go up to m minus 1 in case the range function is defined as n comma m. And there is a third version as well. For I in range, I'll start with 20, end at maybe end at 50, and I want a gap of 5 or a jump of 5 every time. I'll say I equal to it will print 20, 25, 30, 35. So by default, it was the increment of 1 was always there. In the second case also, the increment of 1. But in the third case, when I define the third variable or the third parameter in the range, that is the increment or decrement I am looking for. That means the I will start from n, go up to m minus 1, with increment or decrement of W. Right. So if I have defined range as n comma m comma W. Any questions so far on this?
Here you have only showed the increment actually.
Yes. So I was about to ask everyone to write a loop which will run in a reverse direction. Right. That means this is a problem for all of you. I'll give you a minute to do that. Loop that starts with value 100, reach up to 10 with decrement of I would say a decrement of 8. Can anyone tell me what would be the statement for the for loop, or simply you can tell me what should I write inside range function?
For I in range bracket में 100 comma 10
Okay,
comma -8.
okay, -8. Okay, and can you also tell me what would be the value first 2 3 values that will come, and what would be the last value? Any guesses?
It will start with 92. No? 192.
Okay, it will start with 92.
Start
No, it will the initial
last
value will
12.
192 then.
92, 84,
Yeah.
76, 68, and the last value somebody said it would be 12. Let's check. Is correct.
Mm.
Fine. So at the last point when it reaches 12 and 8 is deducted from 12, it becomes value less than 10. So it will not get printed.
Sir, now all these operations, now you have a virtual keyboard also, it seems they are given. So is that a better way of handling it?
Virtual keyboard for what purpose?
No, I can see it, sir, here in the, there is a
On
key
top.
kind of,
Uh,
yeah.
right, right.
So will that
So,
be more useful handling with that?
so that is like if you want to utilize it, that is okay.
Okay.
Your choice. If you feel convenient moving to a specific cell using this, right, you can do that. Fine. Anyone has any query so far on loops? So if it is all good, then I quickly go for writing functions as well in Python.
So,
All right.
like one of the message there was unsaved changes. So, like, will
Okay.
we have
So
to save
on
occasionally?
uh, fine. So it periodically saves your notebook file, right? If you want to save it manually, on the top you'll find a file menu. On file menu, you can go and simply click on save and checkpoint, right? You can also click on save as, so that gives you an option to save to a specific location, and you also get an option to download as. So anybody who is using the online version can download the notebook file. Now if you download it normally as a notebook, that is fine. So you can only open it in the Jupyter notebook environments. If you download it as a .py, it would come as a normal Python script. In any Python editor environment, you can open that. or you can save it like PDF directly. It will not allow. It requires some external other packages to download as a PDF. So in a browser, if you are using Chrome, you can directly go ahead and click on print and save as PDF. The entire page gets saved as a PDF file. Right. And while you're working, if you simply press Control S, if it is working in your local system, if you press Control S, so this option of save and checkpoint, that will work automatically. Fine. So how to write a function, and that too user defined functions. There's a keyword def that I will use. After that, I have to write function name. What would be the function name? I can keep any logical name. For example, I want to calculate something, right? So I wish to calculate sum of numbers, right? So I'll say calculate sum, and I'll have number x, y, z. These are the parameters that I can accept in the function. I use colon again to end the header of the function, and then inside that I have to write the block of code for my function. Now, uh, when I write block of code, I can perform any operations here. So, for example, I just have to I'll use a variable sum. I'll say x plus y plus z. This value gets saved into the sum variable, and I can use the return statement to return this sum. So whenever anybody call this function, the sum value is calculated and returned back. But while calling the function, we need to pass the value for x, for y, and for z. That is required. Right. So if I execute this cell, this function is created. Now, if I have to anytime use this function, I'll simply write the name of the function, calculate sum, and I will pass some values. When I pass the value is returned back. So 10 plus 20 plus 30, the 60 is the response. I can go ahead and save this value somewhere in a variable. So if I say x equal to calculate sum, and then I can utilize that value anytime. So I can write print. So I can say sum of numbers is. Right. So this function, why do we need these functions? These functions gives us the power of reusability. I can anytime just have to call this function. I don't want to perform the operations again and again. This function might have 10 lines of code, 100 lines of code. I don't have to write those lines of code again and again. I can reuse this by just calling the function name, passing the correct parameters in the function. And the function will get executed. It will return back the values, and then I can utilize it further. And not only directly values, I can also uh, pass on the values from the variables. So if I say, for example, so I can define multiple variables like this: a comma b comma c equal to 5 comma 8 comma 9. So this is like the first value 5 goes to a, second value goes to b, and third goes to c. And in this case, I can call the function calculate sum. I can write a comma b comma c. So three values goes to x, y, z. When the function gets executed, sum is calculated and returned back, which is stored in the variable x. Variable x inside the function is different. Variable x, when we are calling here in this code, is different. It's a different variable. That variable x in the function, inside the function, is a local variable to the function. When I execute this, 5 plus 8 plus 9, 22 is the response.
So what is the difference between local function and like the
So
function?
local variable, this x, y, z, can be used inside the function only. Outside the function, if I use any variable with the same name, will not refer to the values which are stored in the function variables. It has a limited scope within the function only.
So here
Out
we are not defining the nature of the variable x and y and z, whether it is integer or string. So
in
that
Python,
what is
it is not required.
okay. By default, it is printed as integer or
Sorry.
number. By default, it is
L-
considered to be as integer.
So it would hold the data type depending upon the type of value that you pass to the function.
Okay, sir.
Fine. So instead of passing 5, 8, and 9, if I pass 5, 8, and 9.9, so the third variable will be floating type. Accordingly, the calculation is done. Fine. There is something else as well in the functions. Function parameters can have default values. So, for example, I can say x, y, and z equal to 23. Or maybe I can say x, y, and pi equal to 3.14. Now, in this case, if I pass the value of third variable as 3, that gets executed. The calculation is done on that basis. 5 plus 8 plus 3, that is 16 is the calculation. But in case I don't send the value, I'll send only two values, a and b. A and b goes to x and y. Third variable, the value is not sent from the function call, so it will accept the default value which is defined in the function definition, and based on that the calculation is performed. Okay, just a second.
So C value you have
Oh,
given
okay.
3. I think that it
No,
needs to.
actually I've changed the name
Okay.
as pi instead of z. So in the calculation also I had to change x plus y plus pi. Fine. So if I don't pass the third variable value, and default is defined in the function definition, so it will accept the default value. The calculation is done based on that. But something to take care is that any variable or any parameter that has a default value, default parameters should always be written after non-default parameters. First, we have to write the list of all non-default parameters in the function definition, and then we have to start writing the list of parameters which has the default value. Also, there is a way called as keyword parameter. I can call the functionalities. So, for example, I'll say w equal to calculate sum. I'm calling this function again, right? And I don't know whether I have x is the first parameter or y is the first parameter. I don't know, right? So I'll say y is equal to 45, x is equal to 20, and z is the optional one because it has the default value also. I can pass the value or I may not pass the value. So I can simply run that and I'll get the value of w calculated. What happened in that case? Y equal to 45, although I have written it as a first parameter assignment, but I have used the keyword y. So this value goes to y variable only, although it is the second one in the list. The order in the list does not matter if I use the name of the actual parameters here. I can write the value of z as the first value. Okay, sorry, not Z, it would be pi again. My bad. I hope this is clear. Any question on this?
Can you just say the purpose of this particular function?
Okay, so
File.
any function that we create in Python is for reusability. Any code that we write inside the function can be reused anytime. I have to create the function one time and then it can be reused any number of time anywhere in the program.
Okay,
Is it that the same the question you meant to
that's
ask
the
or something
question I
else?
Pratik sir,
Okay.
Tanmay has asked
Yes, sir.
x, y, and pi are global variables.
No. So x, y, and pi, these are the local to function. I'll just give you an example on that. For example, I have a function called as fun, and I have variable a and b. Right. Forget about any previous variables. I have variables a and b, and I'll what I'm gonna do is I'll just return the uh, sum of these variables, right? And whenever I call this function, I'll call it by its name, and I'll say 2 comma 3, for example. So it will return me the value 2 plus 3 equal to 5. Now, anywhere outside this function, if I wish to use the variables a and b, so for example, I'll also say print a, right? So that is available, right? So sorry, that is not available. This value, I guess, comes from here 5. I'll send a different value. In this case, I sent value 2 to variable a. So when I print a, it should come as 2, not 5. But the 5 is taken because I have the global variable a also defined, right? Now, what I'll do here itself, I'll say a equal to hello. Now see. Now, whenever I call the function, first the value 2 and 3 is passed to a and b. Then there is a statement print a, which will print the value of a inside the function. What is the value of variable a inside the function? That is local variable of the function, which is defined in the header a comma b. That local variable has value 2, which has come from the function call. That is value 2. The summation of a plus b is returned, that is value 5. And if I print a after the function, outside, anywhere outside the function, it prints value hello. That is the global a. This a is global to the program right now. And this a, print a, that prints the value 2 is local to function. This is local to function. Similarly, if I go back, if I look at x, y, and pi, these variables will remain local to function. Outside function, if I use the same variable, it will have a different value, a global variable value. If it does not exist, it will throw an error. I'll show you an example for that. If I say m comma n, I print value of m here, right? And I don't have any other uh, global variable as m, and I wish to print the value of m, what will happen? The value of m as 2 gets printed, that is fine, inside the function. The summation is not calculated, okay, it should be m plus n. So summation m plus n is calculated and printed as 5. But when I look to print m outside the function, it will throw an error. It will say name m is not defined. That means it does not recognize any variable with the name m outside function. I hope that answers your question, Tanmay.
So, sir, every time we need to convert global to local, we need to use the hello function.
No. We don't need to convert global to local.
Okay.
We might have in a particular case, it is possible that we have the same name of a variable in locally in a function, and outside the function also there is a global variable with the same name, right?
Okay.
So the local variables inside the function will work inside the function only. They will not exist outside function. If we have the same name of any variable outside the function, that is a separate variable itself.
Okay. So, so if it may happen the other way around also, from local to global.
So we might have a global variable which we wish to use inside the function or any local block, right? In that is a separate case. So we wish if we wish to use that, we use the keyword global with them.
Okay.
I don't want to go into that complexity right now,
Okay. Okay.
uh, because this is a very brief and superficial discussion we are having just to make everybody comfortable with the few basic bits of Python. There are n number of things that I can discuss here. It will take n number of days as well to learn Python basics only. I can go on entire week, 2 weeks or 3 weeks for Python basics only. But this is something what we used to do in a week. I'm just doing in couple of hours. So I'm just touching few basic bits of Python so that in the coming sessions you all get comfortable when you see the code, when you write the codes for data analytics or any other thing. You are already familiar, okay, what are the conditions, what are the loops, how do we write functions or how do we call any predefined function or user defined functions.
So, like the basic purpose of the local variables is most of the time we use the local variables only. Global we usually use for like very general purposes.
Yes, yes, definitely. So inside a for loop, inside a if block, inside a function, or inside any other specific block, whatever function variables we use, those all are the local to that particular block. They will not exist outside the block. So anything where we deliberately want that it should exist in everywhere in the program, we keep them as a global. Otherwise, all are the local variables. Okay, somebody raised their hand. You want to ask, please, you can write it in the chat or you can unmute. Okay, Mariam is saying that Jupyter project not work, how to download it. Uh, I suggest you can right now work in the browser itself using jupyter.org, and I'll share the link with you later on, from where you'll get all the details how to download and install on your local system.
Apart from NX, the language which you told yesterday, we have to download this Jupyter also.
No, so if you have installed Anaconda, Jupyter comes along with Anaconda. You don't need to install it separately. Fine. So, by your permission, if you allow, I'll just move quickly to the next bit. So I'll talk about modules only because we have very less time and something packages are not required right now. There is something called as modules in Python. In if you're familiar with other programming languages like C, C++, there's something called as header files, which provides us with predefined functionalities. So the function that we have created here, the fun or the calculate, this is a user-defined function. But similar to that, there are predefined functions also. Python is an open source programming language, and there is a huge open source community that contributes to Python libraries. So those libraries or library function group of functions is called as modules in Python. Anybody who's familiar with Java, they also know what are packages and modules. what are header files in C and C++. Anybody from electronics, if you've done embedded C, you must have seen the header files. So modules are the library packages. Library packages means it's a collection of some predefined functions inside a common header or common name called as module. So there are hundreds of modules available in Python. A very basic one, I'll just introduce you. There is one module called as math. Now, to use the math module and its functions, I have to call this module in my program. By default, it is not available. As I told you, we have this functionality type type. So if I write type of A, the value type of value is reflected back, right? This is a function, also a predefined function. Type is a predefined function, but it is by default available to me, right? But any other function, some module functionality is not by default available. I have to explicitly call the module inside my program. To call the module, I have a keyword called as import. I'll say import math, right? That is a very simple way to call any module. And once it is imported, I can use the functions of math. Now, what are the functionalities available in math? I can, because I don't know already, I can write math dot underscore underscore dir. Okay, with round brackets, right? So this will list all the functionalities which is there in math module. These are the functionality already available in math module. So if you look at the name, I'll start from here, right? So we have cos, sine, exponential, we have tangent functions also, we have absolute value, we have factorial, floor, module, gamma values, GCD can be calculated, right? Logs can be calculated, log base 10, log base 2, that can be calculated. Remainder, square root, sqrt functionality is there. Pi is defined as a constant. Eccentricity is defined. The value of infinity tau, all these is defined, right? So these are some predefined things in math module. So if I wish to use any of these, how can I do that? I can simply write math dot, for example, I'll use sqrt, that is to calculate the square root of a number. So for example, I'll say 67, that comes out to be 8.18. Right? So I can calculate the square root of a number. I can find out the log as well. So if I say log, and I have to write a comma b, that means the value and the base both I have to write. So if I say 12 comma 2, so that is value 3.5, or I can simply write log base 10 and I'll write some value, for example 2, so it would be 0.3. Or I can write math dot sine and a sine conversion. So if I say like in radians, I have to write. So if I say some value 56, the sine conversion is minus 0.521. So mathematical functionalities can be used this way.
So you can zoom out little bit.
Okay, is this okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So any functionality which is available in the module, that can be utilized. Any question here?
One more term you used was packages. So packages are like something.
So collection, like the collection of functionalities can be grouped together into one module, right? And I can have various modules or sub modules collected together into a single package. It's we can say a further high level collection it is. So there are other elements apart from not only functions. There can be predefined constants as well. There can be predefined classes as well. So classes is when we talk about object oriented programming in Python. So classes and objects comes into picture, and a predefined class can be created which has some attributes and functionalities, and those can be all clubbed together into a single form, which is called as a package.
Okay.
Fine. So if you wish to use any module in Python, you can simply write import, or I have another method. I can write import math as m, because every time if I have to write math.sign, math.log, this name I have to write completely math, right? And there could be some modules which has a larger name. Like in Python, there is one module called as beautiful soup. If you go ahead and import beautiful soup, and you have to write beautiful soup dot function name every time, so you have to type beautiful soup every time, and there can again be spelling mistakes also. So I can create an alias. So I'll write import math as m, simply a second name for this module, and I can then call m dot sign. It works in the same way. Now letter m will represent math module.
For our memory, we have to write it somewhere that what we are writing.
So for some modules, there is a fixed convention that we follow, right? I'll just tell you another example in a while. Also, if I go ahead and say import math, or I'll say math as m, what is happening is I am actually importing all the functionality. Like I am importing math module, but I'm not importing all the functionalities, right? So if I wish to import all the functions, so I can say from math import asterisk. Now I don't have to write math dot sign or m dot sign, not required. I'll just simply say from math import all, asterisk means all, and I'll simply say sign of 56. So it is calculated. So by default now it says the sign function belongs to the math module. And to save memory, if I don't want to import all the functions, so I can say from math import sign comma 10. Only sign and 10 function is imported, all other functions are not. So I can write tangent of some value, it is calculated. But if I go ahead and write sqrt, okay, so because I imported all previously, so it is available. But in that case, if I import only couple of functions, the other function would not be available. Right. And I can also say from math import sign as si, and I can simply write si of some value. I can write an alias of a specific function name also.
So these all things depend upon your usage actually, what
Yes,
exactly you want.
yes. So if you want to import everything, you can simply write import from math import all. You don't want to import anything. You want to explicitly specify the function later within a module name or an alias name. You can use this method. Or if you want to import only a couple of function or few functions only, you can import those functions. Others would not be imported. So the execution time your program takes depends upon these factors, right? If you have less memory, if you want more better execution time, import only the required functionalities. Don't import everything from the module. Otherwise your program will become heavy and execution will take more time. Also, there can be conflicts. There can be another mathematical module which has sign 10 and other functionalities also. You wish to use sign intent from math, but SQRT or any other functionality you want to use it from other module. Maybe it has a better functionality implementation. So only specific function comes from math, and other specific function will come from a different module because they might have a same name. Fine. So as I said, I'll just show you a quick example for another module also. I'll import NumPy. NumPy is a module in Python that is for numerical abilities, right? So I can import NumPy as NP. This is a convention everywhere over the internet. Also, if you look at the codes, they will always import NumPy as NP. NP is uh, the common term that we use, right? So wherever you find NP dot something functionality, that means it's a NumPy functionality that we are going to use. And NumPy has the additional functionality, which is not there in math or any other simple modules. With NumPy, I can go ahead and create arrays in Python. So far, we haven't created any arrays. We can create arrays in Python using NumPy. So I can say NumPy dot array, and I can create a single dimension array. For example, I create this np dot array. A single dimension array is created, or I can say np dot array. I can create two-dimensional array or three-dimensional arrays also. So I say comma 2. 3, comma 4. Right. So this is a two-dimensional. Okay. Sorry. Okay, fine. I missed one bracket here. This is a two-dimensional array that I have created, or simply a matrix can be created. I can go ahead and create three-dimensional or multi-dimensional arrays as well. NumPy also provides us the facility.
So like these arrays help in the calculation, some
Yes,
mathematical calculation and all.
yes. So when we have the multidimensional data, and we are going to perform the data analytics tomorrow, we'll go ahead and see the how visualizations can be created out of the data. Some basic descriptive analytics can be done. Day after tomorrow, we'll go into the deep exploratory data analysis. There, the data would be multidimensional. If it is stored in NumPy arrays, it the NumPy functionalities can be directly implemented on NumPy arrays or matrices. Matrix multiplication, the product of matrices, the dot products, the linear scalar calculations over the arrays can be performed directly on NumPy arrays. It provides us with great functionalities. I'll just show you an example. For example, I want to calculate the mean of values, right? I have a single dimension array. For example, I have some values. I have these 9 values, and I say np dot mean of these values. So a mean is calculated quickly. Now, if this array, single dimension array, or this list of values has 1,000 values, 10,000 values, million values, then also np functionalities are very quick to respond. It will perform the calculations very quickly. It has np dot std, that is for standard deviation. Standard deviation can be calculated quickly. I can calculate the variance using np.var. Variance can be calculated. Covariance matrix can be calculated. So this is the numerical abilities that NumPy array has, NumPy module has.
These arrays can be up till three, like
Uh, 3 dimensions.
yeah. So like
No, it can be more than 3 dimensions also. Manually, if I go ahead and write, it would be convenient for me to write up to 3 dimensions. If I go ahead and write for 4 dimensions, it will become very complex to write and see as well, to perceive as well. But it can have more number of dimensions also, 4 dimension or multi-dimension. So n number of dimensions are possible. And I can go ahead and save this into some variable. So if I say AR equal to this np dot array, so AR is the array, and if I check the type, what is AR? So it is an NumPy ND array. ND array means n-dimensional array. And if I say AR dot shape, that will tell me the shape of the array, how many columns and how many rows are there. So 2 rows and 2 columns. This is a 2 by 2 matrix. Any questions so far on this?
Pratik sir, I think we are moving ahead of the time. We
Yes,
scheduled
sir.
it up to 8, but I am
Uh,
really thankful.
okay, I can stop here, I guess, because the basics are all done. The data structure is something which I have not touched. That I will ask the other member to give you a little brief on that tomorrow when we start the session.
Okay, sir. Can I ask one question if you permit?
Uh, sure, sir.
Yeah. So, in management, we often use R actually, and
Yes.
engineers usually prefer Python. So,
Who prefers Python?
like in all, usually
Hmm.
in all
Hmm.
your engineering and say machine learning and everything,
Okay. Okay.
usually people want to work on Python only.
Right.
Whereas R is like again said to be like very like anyone can use and all that.
Yes. So it is also quite easy and similar to that. And when we come to NumPy arrays and matrices, it is exactly the same implementation that we have in R or even in MATLAB as well. So you'll find it very much similar to that. Definitely, because it's a different programming language, it has its own different syntax and semantics. It has its own different name of functionalities. The module names, function names are different as compared to R. So if you're familiar with R, these will look similar, but the name of functions, the syntax would look different because it's a Python way of doing it. Both R and Python has the similar capabilities. If you go ahead and look for data analytics, performing visualizations, they both have the same capabilities. So Python, actually, again, being an open source, it also has a huge set of library modules which will help you uh, like to implement anything, not only in terms of data analytics, in machine learning, or even in any other advanced topic, or even to web development or anything. It's a general purpose language, so it allows you to do all other tasks as well. While R has some limitations, it's not for a general purpose. Okay, so Mariam is asking for a relevant book for Python. Okay, so that is there is one book for Python programming which I generally refer to those who are the beginners in Python programming. That is by James Liang. I'll just a second. I'll just have to uh, search for exact title. I'll share the link in the chat. Okay, so it's not James, sorry, Daniel Liang. So just a second, and it's available on Amazon as well. So Introduction to Python Programming by Daniel Liang. So if you're really keen to learn about the basics of Python from the very scratch, this is a nice book. The flow, the order of topics is really good. The examples are really good.
Okay, Pratik sir, I
Yeah.
think there are a lot many things as you mentioned that we can discuss here under the basics even.
Yes, sir.
But because of the compulsion of time, and we have planned in such a manner that the people who are attending, they have already went to their colleges and now they are attending it.
Yeah.
So it's our limitation that we are not harnessing your capabilities here to learn more about the basics. But definitely the things that you have shared, I think may help us to learn, motivate us to learn more about the Python. So from our side, I would like Professor Rahul Singhal to facilitate an e-memento to you from our side. Professor Rahul Singhal. Sir, unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right, right. Thank you. On behalf of AKGIM, I take it great pleasure to thank you, sir. The way you have explained and demonstrated, uh, I doesn't belong to a technical background, but even then I was able to know each and every aspect, and I would be using all those aspects in my research and analysis.
Thank you, sir.
And you explain in such a lucid way, and the way you have expressed and clear all the doubts, that is really need a great applaud. And on behalf of AKGM and of all faculty and directors, sir, I thank you so much for delivering such a wonderful session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is
Yes, sir.
sir, our e-memento for you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Please do share it on email, sir, if possible.
Sure, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Apart from this one, sir, we have also, try to make out that somehow we should acknowledge your contribution to this FDP. So with the permission of our director, sir, we would like to present this certificate of appreciation.
Thank you so much.
And this is something which we can only manage to on this online mode. If it has been a case of offline, definitely something more that we can share here.
So thank you so much. It was really nice interacting with all of you. All the participants were so good. They were asking queries, questions. So and I felt like it's a very lively session, and I really enjoyed. Although because of the time constraint, there were n number of things coming to my mind that I should tell this also, but I was not able to. But definitely some other time we'll try to have another session, more sessions for the same audience, and then we can discuss more things related to this.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Yes,
We request participant to kindly fill up the attendance and come feedback form. Uh, and please mention your name that we can print on the certificate as well. Just see through the spelling so that spelling could be the right one. And those who have filled up may sign off for tomorrow's session. Thank you so much, Pratik, sir.
thank you. Thanks, everyone.